Hey there everyone, welcome to my introduction to Nintendo games. This is going to be the first system I'm going to be starting out with is Nintendo because I'm doing all my video games in order. So this is going to be a more thorough introduction to my channel and the video games to come. Right now I'm only going to do the intro on Nintendo. I'm going to be showing pictures of all the games I'm going to be playing and might talk a little bit about some of them. And I'm just going to do the Nintendo games though. I'm not going to do any of the other systems right now. After I finish playing all the Nintendo games, I'll go ahead and do the introduction to my Super Nintendo games in a separate video before doing those games. So the Nintendo was actually released in Japan back in 1983 and came out in released in the United States in 1985. Now all the release dates that I'm going to have posted for these videos are going to be release dates for the United States. And I also want to mention that on my Facebook page, go to my Facebook page, Jay's Retro Video Games on Facebook. On there, go ahead and like my page. That way, every video that I upload, every single video game, I'm going to put on that page. So you can subscribe to me here on YouTube, or you can go to Facebook and click the like on my page, or do both. Now remember, my Facebook name is the same as my YouTube name, so it shouldn't have any problems remembering it. But I'm also going to have a photo album on my Facebook page, and every time I upload a video, I'm going to put a picture of that game in the photo album, so you can click on the photo albums to see what games are uploaded. And each game, I'm going to have the title of the game on there, of course. I'm going to have the system that it's played on. I'm also going to have the release date and the game publisher underneath the picture too. And also, what I'm going to do is put a link underneath the picture to my YouTube video. So if you see a picture of a game that you liked, you can click on the picture, and underneath it's going to be a link. So that way you can always go back and watch videos of games even after I've posted them already. So here's the Nintendo, released in America in 1985. The first game I'm going to be playing, of course, is Super Mario Brothers, which was also released in 1985. All these games I'm going to be playing pretty much in chronological order from the release date, but not as accurate as the month. I'm pretty much just doing it by year, so we'll see the 1985 games first, then 1986, and keep moving on. But I usually like to try starting out each year with a big game, so like 1985, Super Mario Brothers. It's the game I'm going to start out with because that was like a huge game on Nintendo. It was like one of the biggest. It's actually the most game that was put out there was Super Mario Brothers. It's listed as the #1 selling game, but I really don't count this game as the #1 selling game, because the reason they count it is because this game has been produced more than any other game. That's because you got it free with the system. So technically, if the game is free when you bought the Nintendo, you're not paying for the game, you're paying for the system. So anyway, Super Mario Brothers, I think everyone knows how to play this. You start out as a little Mario, collect your mushroom to get big, and just avoid obstacles till you get to Bowser. Now, out of all these games I'm going to play, most of them I'm going to play as far as I can get. Like, this game is the only it's the only Mario game I have that I've never beaten. So this game I'm going to play as far as I can get until I die, use up all my lives. Some games I'll play until I beat, other games play until I either die or get frustrated and can't get any further. Next game we're going to see is Excite Bike. It's kind of a fun game where you pretty much race against the computer. You can create your own racetrack too. Most of these older games were made by Nintendo. You see Nintendo in the background, that's because they were published by Nintendo and created by Nintendo. But as we get moving on, we started getting a lot of other companies producing games and publishing them. And we're going to see baseball. This is another one made by Nintendo. Pretty much your basic baseball game. There's only 6 teams in this game, and those teams don't even have names. They have letters. There's A, C, D, P, R, and Y. I usually picked C because I was always a Chicago White Sox fan. But this is one of those games that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. No team has a better advantage over anyone. No player is better than anyone. They're all pretty much the same, kind of like droids. But still a pretty fun game for its time. Then we got Wrecking Crew. This is kind of one of those puzzle games where you go around smashing stuff. You gotta break all these, like, I don't know if they're locker doors or what they're supposed to be. Break all the walls. Pretty much break every breakable item on the board without getting touched by the monster. The cool thing about this game is if you get stuck on one board, you can press select, go to back to the home screen, and you can actually choose what board you want to play, so you can move forward or back. Now this game might look confusing to those of you in the United States. It says Super Mario Bros. 2, but that doesn't look like Super Mario Bros. 2. It looks more like the first Super Mario game. That's because this was the original Super Mario Bros. 2 that was made in Japan in 1986. It was first released in Japan to see how people liked it, but apparently no one liked it over there. They said it was too much like the first game, but it was too hard. So Japan decided not to release this game to the United States. It can now be found, you can now download this game on the Wii. You can also find the 16-bit version on the Super Nintendo. It's called Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. But it was actually supposed to be the original Super Mario Bros. 2, created in 1986. And then Japan had to put off, well, the Nintendo company in Japan had to put off making Super Mario Bros. Games because they didn't have enough time. So, 1987, the game came out called Doki Doki Panic. 1988, they changed that game into Super Mario Bros. 2, or at least the Super Mario Bros. 2 that we know of. I'll get into more detail with that when I get to the 1988 games, but this here is Super Mario Bros. 2, the original, the first one, better known as Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this game too. I just downloaded it on the Wii yesterday. I've played the 16-bit version on the Super Nintendo, but I've never actually played the original version, so this will be a first time for me for this game. Then we got Bubble Bobble, but this here is the original Bubble Bobble, the picture we're seeing here. The version I have is Bubble Bobble Plus on the Wii, so it's pretty much the same. There's a few boards that I think they changed up, but for the most part it's the same. You're a little monster going around catching bad guys in bubbles, and then you pop them. So it's a pretty fun game. I'll go into more detail when I'm actually playing the games. You can play 1 or 2 players in this game, which is cool. I always like 2-player games where the player 1 and player 2 are working together against the bad guys. Seems like aren't too many games like that. 1987, we're going to see The Legend of Zelda. Now, many of these games I have downloaded on the Wii. Some of them I have the cartridges, which I will be playing in my Retro Duo Portable. So, the thing I like about the Wii is if you're playing a really long game, like a game that's going to take hours, you can always just pause right, no matter what point in the game you're at, you can just pause it and shut off your Wii, come back and continue where you left off. But anyways, for the most part, my videos aren't going to be too long. At least most of them won't be. The longest I can record one video is 1 hour because my camera shuts off when it hits 1 hour. So anytime I'm playing a game that takes longer than an hour, I'm going to have to make like a 2-parter or 3-parter depending on how long the game is. But there aren't too many games on the Nintendo that are longer than one video. There will be a few. But anyways, Legend of Zelda, I think a lot of people have played this game too. I can usually beat the first castle and the second castle, that's about it, so once I get that far, I kind of give up. Castlevania. This is kind of weird how they actually designed this game, because it's like got player's energy and the enemy's energy here, even when you're not playing the enemy. But you keep collecting these hearts, and you can use those hearts kind of like ammo for certain weapons. It's kind of weird. But this game I can beat. Once again, I think I could beat the first 2 bosses in this board, and that's about it. Next, we're going to see Wonder Boy on the Sega Master System. This originally Came out on arcade. It was pretty popular on arcade. And Sega actually made this game on arcade, and then they brought it to the Sega Master System. The thing I really don't like about this game is the jumping. The controls are really hard when you're jumping, but it's kind of a fun platformer game. I want to kind of say it's kind of like a copy of Super Mario Brothers. You know, platformer starting off like beginning, working your way to the end. And instead of fireballs, Wonder Boy here has hammers. But I can't get too far in this game. This is the only Sega Master System game that I have at the moment too. I've got it downloaded on the Wii. Next we're going to see Mega Man. Cool thing about this game is you can choose what board you want to play first. So I'll go ahead and play every board. I'll probably fail at every one of them, but hey, at least it'll be something interesting to watch. I'm not too good at this game. Elevator Action. This is kind of another puzzle game. You start in an elevator and just work your way down to the bottom. You go into all these red doors, and you just try to avoid getting shot by the agents in the game. You can either duck or jump when they shoot at you. You can also shoot back at them. I usually get to the third board in this game before I end up losing all my lives. So this game probably won't take long. Double Dribble. This game has been a real annoying game to play for me ever since I got it, because I always get crushed by the computer, but you'll see me playing anyways. Basketball game made by Konami. We're actually going to see quite a few sports games. We're going to see quite a few hockey and baseball games. There's going to be a few basketball games. And some football games, mostly all made by Tecmo though. There is one other football game that I can think of offhand that's not Tecmo. But we're only going to see 2 football games on the original Nintendo, and actually possibly 1, hopefully 2. I'll explain it when I get there. But anyways, Double Dribble. You got 4 teams: Chicago, New York, Boston, and Los Angeles. I usually pick Chicago, and it seems like the computer always picks Boston. But I'll probably get crushed in this game as usual. So, next we're going to see Punch-Out. Originally, this game was called Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. And sometime, I think it might have been like 2 years after it came out, they ended up taking Mike Tyson's character out of it and replaced him with a fictional character called Mr. Dream, and just called it Punch-Out. But anyway, I got this one downloaded on the Wii. It just says Punch-Out. I can't get that far. I can get to maybe like usually get to Soda Popinski before I die. Or I shouldn't say die, but before I get beat. And I usually play all the way up until the point where I get beat. Once I get beat, I quit. So I really don't like to go back and face off against the last boxer that I just beat. Next, Karate Kid. This is an LJN game. LJN is notoriously known for publishing games, bad games made from good movies. Like Karate Kid is one of them. It's a pretty good movie, but LJN created a game that I guess it wasn't so bad, but it's just make a lot of I don't know if you want to say mistakes, but they just do stupid things that a lot of other video game publishers probably wouldn't publish or would have changed. Like in this game, you got like an unlimited number of bad guys constantly attacking you. You gotta keep fighting off, and they all look the same. And they got way too many they got 3 bonus stages in this game, and they got way too many of them. Like, there's the swinging hammer, the ice block break, and the catch the flies with the chopsticks. It's like they got tons of those bonus stages around, but at least it's a change up for something different. Next we're going to see Top Gun. It's kind of a fun jet fighting game. This one was also in a movie turned into a game, but this wasn't made by LJN. This one was made by Konami, I think. So Konami usually made pretty good games. But this is a pretty fun one. Sometimes I can beat it, sometimes I can't. You just have to beat all 4 of the missions without dying 3 times. So the ways you could die is either you get hit by a missile, or you don't land your plane right and you end up crashing into the water. So usually if the missiles are shooting at you, you could shoot them out of the sky or avoid them. I usually try avoiding, steering away from them, but if they're like directly in the center of the screen where you know you can't steer away from them, I go ahead and shoot them out of the air if I can. You just want to make sure your target in the center is right on the missile. Landing the plane can be tricky because you got to keep an eye on your speed, your altitude, and you got to also pay attention to where it will say like go up, down, left, or right. So kind of like looking at a few different things at once. Next game we're going to see is Solomon's Key. I heard this was a really fun game, but I played it, and first board was pretty fun. The second board was like really hard. So I really don't like this game, but we'll go ahead and take a look at it. Next game, we got Soccer. That's another thing with these old games produced or published by Nintendo. They had such basic names like just baseball or soccer. They didn't have like any cool names with them. So this is Nintendo Soccer, and pretty fun game. I've downloaded this one on the Wii. I played it once and I won, so that was pretty cool. Here's another LJN game. This game is not actually based off a movie, and it's actually probably one of LJN's most fun games to play. TNC Surf Design. Now the surfing part is, or the skateboarding part is really fun, but they went and ruined it by making a really stupid surfing part of the game, and it's like almost impossibly difficult to play. So I'll probably be seeing more of the skateboarding than the surfing. I'll probably go ahead and do skateboarding, then surfing, then maybe I'll do skateboarding again just because it's fun. Okay, here we go, 1988. Super Mario Bros. 2, the one we're familiar with. Now I'm going to go ahead and move to the next picture for a minute. This also looks like Super Mario Bros. 2, but if you zoom into the character, you notice that's not Mario and that's not a potion he's got above his head. That's because this is a game, Doki Doki Panic, made in 1987, that the Nintendo company went and took. And see, this game, Doki Doki Panic, was only released in Japan. And what the Nintendo company did is they took this game, made a few changes to it, like took the characters out of it and put Mario characters into it. They made a change to, like they added the star, you know, when Mario gets the star and he's invincible, they added that to the game. They also added some music to the game that, like, most of the music in the game is pretty much the same. Now, I don't have the game Doki Doki Panic, but I have watched someone else play it on YouTube, and the music is almost identical, except for there's a couple scenes where you hear Mario music, like when he goes into the door of the potion. It has like the same music from the first Super Mario game, and also when you collect the star. But other than that, everything else is the same, the bad guys and everything. So there's Doki Doki Panic, and this is Super Mario Bros. 2. Now this is a game I can beat, and this is probably the first game we're going to see that's going to be longer than an hour. This game usually takes me about an hour and a half to beat. And now when I play these games, there's usually shortcuts and warps to take, but I don't like to do that. I like to just play all the way through so we can see everything. So I'm going to skip the warps. But when we get to the Super Nintendo, we're going to see the 16-bit version of the Super Mario games on Super Mario All-Stars. And in that game, I'll go ahead and do the first like full playthrough, and then I'll go ahead and go back and show all the warp tunnels and shortcuts and all that stuff. So there's quite a few shortcuts in the Super Mario 2. Usually through this game, I like to use Toad through the entire game because he's the strongest character. Something different about Super Mario 2, you can choose either Mario, Luigi, Toad, or Princess. Mario really doesn't have any abilities other than the simple fact that he's the star of the game. But Toad's the strongest. He could pick like the bad guys up real quick. He could also pull up the vegetables real quick. Luigi's got the highest jump. And the princess has the ability to hover for a few seconds when she jumps. The next game we're going to see here is Adventure Island. Now this is Nintendo's version of Wonder Boy. Pretty much the exact same game, except for the character looks a little different. And the music is also different, but pretty much the same thing. You're running around throwing hammers at the bad guys, and what I forgot to mention about the last game is up here you got your vitality, and that keeps going down. It's kind of like a timer, but you can keep refilling it by collecting food like fruits, veggies, and other kinds of food you see floating around. Keep collecting them and it'll keep going up. But just like now in this game, the jump is actually a lot better than the Wonder Boy game. So you have better control over his like movements and that, but still I can't get very far in this game. Next we're going to see another baseball game. Bases loaded. I usually pick Jersey, and the computer, it seems like every time I pick Jersey, the computer picks Boston. I don't know what it is about Boston, but the computer always seems to pick them. But kind of a fun baseball game. This is another one where sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. So, made by Jalico. Next we're going to see the ice hockey. This is the first, now this is another game made by Nintendo, just called Ice Hockey. Another thing you can tell about with games made by Nintendo, you can always tell because they always have Nintendo written somewhere, like right here on the ice surface. The baseball game, they got it back on their fence. And they always have Nintendo written in the background somewhere. But cool thing about this game is you can choose your players. There's fat players, which are, those guys are slow, but they're hard to knock down. You got your skinny players, which are really fast, but they're easy to knock down. You got your medium players, which is like just right in the middle. So I usually pick one fatty, one skinny guy, and two medium guys. You also got, for your teams, you got countries like USA, Japan, Russia. So of course, since I'm American, I'll pick USA. Here we got Ghostbusters. This game can be kind of fun, but after a while it gets kind of tedious. You're doing the same thing over and over again. And I've never beaten this game, but I finally found a tip watching someone else play that when you get to the final stage, walking up, I guess you can go into the third door and get the suit that makes you invincible. So, or at least invincible against the ghost, but I don't know, I guess we'll have to see. Next game, another classic, Paperboy. I think everyone's played this game. And this game was actually made by Mindscape. Now, I really don't have a whole lot of games made by Mindscape. I really don't know much about that company. Well, I guess I should say published by Mindscape, but I don't know. I do have a few games by Mindscape, and they seem to make some pretty good games, some popular games, but they didn't seem to produce that many games. But Paperboy is one of them. It's one of those games where you can keep on playing. Pretty much you go down the road delivering papers to the houses. You want to deliver to the ones that are in white and yellow. The red ones are non-subscribers. So instead of delivering them to them, you can get points by breaking their windows and stuff like that. You got all these obstacles coming at you, like you got kids on skateboards flying down the street. You got dogs chasing you. There's a kid breakdancing on the sidewalk. Looks like he's trying to pull his pants up. You got tires rolling out at you. You got tornadoes coming up the street behind you. You got the Grim Reaper walking around. You got an old lady chasing you. You got cars coming down the street. Pretty much anything you could think of that would ruin your day being a Paperboy is going to happen. Pretty fun game though. Okay, this here is one of my favorite games, Spy vs. Spy. And you got the white spy up here, black spy down here. This is a bad picture. I should have picked a different picture because you can't see one of the spies is missing. But anyway, in this game, you play as the white spy on the top screen. The computer plays the black spy unless you're playing 1 and 2 players, and the first player will be on top, second player will be the bottom one. But I usually like playing against the computer because it's pretty easy. You go to all these different rooms. You got to find a bag, passports. You check behind all these items like a desk, chair, TVs, shelves. Check for items. You can also check your map. It shows where the items are. And you go to all these rooms. So you need the bag. Once you get the bag, you can carry all the other items. There's the money, the passport, the key, and the papers. Now normally you can only carry one of those at a time, but if you got the bag you can carry all 4 of them. Once you have all those items, all 4 items in the bag, you go to the door, go to the room that's got the airplane on the door, and exit through there. Another thing about this game is you can plant bombs on each other in the hiding spots, like behind TVs and that, and blow each other up. Every time you die, you're kind of like suspended for 10 seconds where you don't play. That's what we're seeing right here in this first game. That's why we don't see spy number 1 up there, because apparently when this picture was taken was when he was dead. So that's what happens. Your screen kind of goes gray and you just have to wait like 10 seconds before you come back. Another thing that happens is you lose time off your clock up here, the time clock that counts down. I think you lose like 30 seconds or something, but so far since buying this game, I've never gotten beat by the computer, so it should be pretty fun. There's also 8 levels to play in this game, and it's not really a difficulty level, it's just each level the board's bigger. So level 1 you only got 6 rooms, level 2 going up to 8 just keeps getting bigger. Some levels have an upstairs and a downstairs, and some of the other ones don't, so pretty fun game, one of my favorites. This game might take about an hour long. Right here we see Double Dragon. Now the original version was released in 1985, I believe, or maybe it was 86, but anyways, the arcade version is probably my favorite all-time video game. This Nintendo version is a very bad imitation, but I guess we'll go ahead and check it out anyway. So I'll be fighting as this guy in blue. It's pretty much a fighting game. Just be fighting against all these bad guys, and there's really not a whole lot to tell about this game other than you just keep going and fighting. Next we're going to see Mickey Mousecapade. Now I played this game once, I got frustrated with it, but then I figured out what I was doing a little later on in the game, just before quitting, so hopefully this time around I have more fun with it now that I know some other ways to get past the bad guys. Here we got Zelda, The Adventures of Link. I think that's correct. Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link. And really don't know what to say about this game. I played it a few times and didn't really like it, so it's probably going to be a pretty quick game. It's probably fun for those who have grown up playing it a lot, but this is one game I really didn't play as a kid. Didn't try it until recently. And the only reason I downloaded this game on the Wii is because I went and downloaded the first game, Legend of Zelda, because it was such a popular game. I mean, everyone's heard of that Legend of Zelda who's grown up in the 80s. So that's the only reason I downloaded it, was to see what it was like. I liked the first game. I tried the second game and I didn't like this one. Next we're going to see Super Dodgeball. This is a pretty fun game. And first I'm going to be doing Beanball mode, which is like one player against everyone, or actually it's more like one for all, but if a computer player beats you, then they all celebrate, so it's kind of not fair, but we'll do that, and then I'll go ahead and do tournament mode where we actually play matches against the whole world. I'm Team USA, and I get to play against each country. I don't think I've ever gotten beat at this game. I win it all the time. Really easy. Of course, I play in the easy difficulty level too. This one's another hockey game, 1988 yet, Blades of Steel. Actually, I think most of the Nintendo games I have were made in 88. I see quite a few of them, but Blades of Steel, another hockey game where you could choose your team, or no, wait, no, this one you got your actual city team names. So I usually pick Chicago in here. They don't have like professional names, they just have cities, so there's like Chicago, Minnesota, Toronto, Los Angeles, and I don't know, I think there's like 8 teams. I just picked Chicago, and the weird thing about this game is when you get in a fight, it's like the loser of the fight has to sit in the penalty box. and so the winner of the fight goes in the power play. One thing that's really annoying about this game is every time the computer takes a shot towards the net, your controller automatically switches from player to goalie. So that's one thing you got to keep in mind. If you're pressing like down and they shoot up, you got to remember you're in control of the goalie. You got to hurry up and move back up. So it's kind of hard to get used to doing that, but I played this game I think twice since I got it. I won once and lost once. Here's another LJN game, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Another good movie turned into a bad game. But actually the game's not that bad. It's kind of fun, but it's really hard. You can get to a certain point and can't get, well, at least I can't get any further, but I guess I'm not really the best at some of these video games anyway. So we'll go ahead and see this game for a little while. Track and Field 2, another game made by Konami. This is a game that I haven't played in over 20 years. I recently got the Nintendo cartridge, so I haven't played it since I got it. So this will be like a first time in 20 years since playing this game. But I think it's pretty much just like an Olympics game if I remember right. Got all kinds of different games like fencing we see here, and I don't remember what else. I guess we'll have to wait until we get there. Oh, Jordan vs. Bird. This is another game that I haven't played in like 20 years. I recently never got around to playing it, so this one was a pretty fun game. I used to love playing the... Okay, I believe this... Yeah, this is 1988. I used to love playing this one mode where you do these special shots and you compete like one-on-one. And I think you could play against the computer or 2 players in that mode. I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to see. If not, I can go ahead and put my second controller in and do 2 players, me against me. But you can do different modes of basketball in this game. California games. That's where you do all these different games like out in California, like skateboarding, ice skating, or not ice skating, roller skating, BMX bike, like dirt biking, stuff like that. Hacky sack. So it's kind of like a Olympics of California games. And to end the 1988 games, we're going to see Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. This is another one of my favorites. This is a game I can beat. It'll probably take me close to 2 hours to beat this game. This is going to take a lot of explaining to do because this game is so different than the first game. So for those who have not played this game, I'm going to have to... I mean, there's too much to explain in this intro, so I'm just going to have to wait until I actually play the game to show exactly everything to do. But you keep upgrading, like, you want to kill bad guys, collect hearts. You get experience in purchasing hearts for them. You can use those hearts, you're purchasing hearts to buy like better whips and stuff like that, and weapons. And you gotta go to all these mansions. Now the story is that in Castlevania 1, Simon Belmont, your character, beat Dracula, but just before Dracula died, he put a curse on Simon. So in this game, you have to bring Dracula back to life by going to the 5 different mansions and collecting the 5 different parts of Dracula. There's Dracula's... Let's see, the first one is his rib. Second one's his heart, his eyeball, his nail, and his ring. So you gotta collect those 5 parts from each one from a different mansion. Take them to the ruins of Transylvania and light him on fire, and it brings Dracula back to life, and then you gotta kill him again. So, kind of a weird story, but it's a really fun game. It's one Castlevania game that I can pass. Now this game does have alternate endings in it too, and it's more of alternate credit endings. So if you beat Dracula in like 8 days, like game playing days, they have like a timer. If you beat him in 8 days, you get the best ending. If you beat him 8 to 16 days, you see the medium ending. You beat him in 16 or more days, you'll see the worst ending. So what I plan on doing is I want to try timing it out so I can get it between 8 and 16, so we'll see the medium ending. Now I'll go ahead and use a password and go back and play a quick playthrough. See, when I use the password, I'll have all the items, so it won't take me more than like 11 minutes to get from start to finish. So we'll get to see the worst ending, and then I'll do it again so we can see the best ending. So we'll get to see all 3 endings. Next game we're going to see, Tecmo Bowl, the first football game we're going to see. And this was the very first video game, sports video game, that had permission to use professional players' names. So it had the professional team player names. It didn't have the team names, but it had like this team cities like Los Angeles, which was the Raiders at the time. It had like Chicago, Washington, and I guess they didn't have permission to use the team names, but they did get permission to use the player names. So when you see like Los Angeles, it had all the Raiders players' names, like it had Bo Jackson, Jay Schrader, Marcus Allen. And the thing about this game is it only had 12 teams, which I didn't like because I was a Packer fan, and the Packers were one of the teams that weren't in the game. So I usually pick Los Angeles in this game. Now, the version I downloaded on the Wii doesn't have the players' names in there. They took them out, and they have them replaced by the player's number. So, they still have the same abilities, like Bo Jackson's a fast runner in the game. You know, whoever was a good quarterback at the time is still a good quarterback in the game. So, in this game, I don't think it had an option to play like preseason or regular season. You just pick play, and it automatically goes as full season. What happens is you pick your team, and the computer randomly picks a team to play against. You have to beat that team to move on to the next game, and you got to beat that team to move on to game 3. I think if you get beat, I think you have to, I'm not sure if you have to play that team again or how that works, but sometime I'd like to do a full season of all the Tecmo games, but it'd take a lot of time. I'd have to wait till I was like at the end of all my games. Okay, next we're going to see, oh, by the way, we're in 1989 now. Tecmo Super Bowl was the beginning of, or Tecmo Bowl, I should say, was the beginning of 1989 games. Here is Tetris. Now, I believe there was 2 versions of Tetris, one made by Nintendo, and I think another one was made by a company called Tengen, but they're both on Nintendo. This is the original version, just made by Nintendo, and I'm pretty sure this was actually designed by some guy up in Russia, but this game was pretty huge. I think just about everyone's played some version of Tetris, either whether it be on Nintendo, Game Boy, the computer. I think everyone's played this game. You just put the pieces where they fit, keep clearing lines. Every time you get 10 lines, you get up to another level, and each level the pieces fall faster, so pretty fun game. Next we're going to see the Three Stooges. This game can be kind of fun, but it's one of those games where you're trying to build up money to save an orphanage from going out of business, or from this lady with her orphanage from getting kicked out of the building by some greedy landlord, and the Three Stooges decide they're going to get the money for her. So what you got to do is you play all these like little side games and get money for them. You got to avoid mouse traps, and you got to get up to like a certain amount of money within a certain amount of time. But it's kind of a fun game, but you start playing these games over and over again, these little side games, and it kind of gets boring. So I haven't passed this since I bought it. I have beaten this game back years ago when I used to rent it as a kid, but recently, since buying it, I haven't been able to beat it. Next we're going to see Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle. It's kind of a fun puzzle game where you go through doors collecting carrots, avoiding the bad guys. You got these different things you could push on them, like safes and boxes. You can get invisible ink and walk through them to kill them. You can pick up boxing gloves and shoot them at them. And you just keep moving from board 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to I actually got the passwords to all these boards, so I might play up to a certain point and quit, and then maybe sometime in the future come back and continue where I left off. I'm not sure though. Just see how it goes. But it's actually not a bad game except for the controls. I don't like going down steps. Once you control Bugs Bunny to go down the steps, you can't turn him around and go back the other way. He keeps going all the way until he gets to the bottom of the steps, then you can turn him around. It's not the same way for up steps though, but it's a real bad situation if you're going down a flight of steps and all of a sudden you're halfway down and you see a bad guy at the bottom of the steps. You can't turn around to avoid hitting him. You keep going until you get all the way to the bottom. You gotta hope that you don't run into him. Next we're going to see Ninja Gaiden. This game kind of like Castlevania. So, now the Ninja Gaiden games were made by Tecmo. Castlevania games were all made by Konami. But it's pretty much the same thing, except for, like, in Castlevania you got a whip for a weapon. Ninja Gaiden you got a sword. But it's got your health up here. Pretty much looks the same. When you get hit, you get these empty boxes, just like in Castlevania. It's also got the enemy's health underneath you. You can also get items in this box here, just like Castlevania, you can do that. And I think you can collect things, just like the same way Simon Belmont collects hearts, but I can't get very far in this game at all, so I'll probably play until I use up all my lives. Here we got Baseball Stars. This is a pretty fun baseball game. This is going to be I think the third one so far on Nintendo we've seen. The cool thing about this game is you can create your own teams, your own players, and every time you win a game you get points to build up your players, so that's kind of fun if you're playing a full season. But I'll probably pick the American Dreams because they're one of the best teams, and I'll play against one of the computer teams. Last time I played this game I was crushing the other team, and all of a sudden they made a comeback, and I can't remember if they won it at the end or not, but it was really close. Here we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Probably one of the worst games ever made, but I think anyone who grew up back in the old days was a fan of the Ninja Turtles, so everyone's probably played this game. We'll go ahead and see it. The thing I hate about this game, well, every time you start out as Leonardo. After that, you get to choose what turtle you want to use. So that's kind of weird. But in this game, Donatello's got the best advantage because he's got that long stick called the bow staff. And it's like Michelangelo's nunchucks are really tiny. Raphael's sai is really tiny. Leonardo's sword is kind of long, but doesn't have quite the reach that Donatello's staff has. So you get the advantage with Donatello. And I don't really think that's fair. I think in a Ninja Turtles game they should all have the same ability. Or at least each one should have an ability that someone else doesn't have. You know, change it up somehow. Here we see POW. This game's, or no, not POW, this one is Operation Wolf. And this game goes really fast. You're just sitting there shooting at all these bad guys who are like, it's like kind of first person shooter view, but the screen keeps moving on its own, and you gotta shoot all them bad guys while they're throwing grenades at you and shooting at you, and eventually you end up dying. I can't imagine how anyone can actually beat this game because it's really hard, but it's kind of fun to keep playing over and over. Next we're going to see Boyne's Blob. Kind of a weird game. It's where you're running around with your blob, and you feed your blob jelly beans. Each jelly bean turns them into something different which you can use to avoid obstacles. So like licorice jelly bean turns them into a ladder in case you need to climb up somewhere. And pretty much got all these jelly beans that do all these different things, so I've never gotten too far in this game. Bad Dudes, another game that was really fun on arcade. Wasn't half the fun on Nintendo. Another fighting game. Not much else to say about it. 1990, we got Super Mario Bros. 3. This was the #1 selling game of all time. It grossed more money than any video game in the history of video games. But looks a lot more like Super Mario Bros. 1. You got the Koopas and the Goombas again. You got your coin blocks, mushrooms, and all that good stuff. This is a game I can beat, but it's going to take like 3.5 hours to beat this game, so it's probably going to be 4 videos long, but definitely worth it. This is another one of my favorites. I think just about everyone who grew up in the 80s and 90s loved this game. Next we got Classic Concentration, made by GameTech. GameTech always made video games out of game show games, and they also always made them really hard for some reason. This is one of them. It's like, if you remember the game show Classic Concentration, what you gotta do is match the prices up like bed, and find the other one that says bed, and when you match them, you get the bed in your category. And each time you get a match, you get another prize. You don't necessarily win that prize, but it's in your category, like behind you, between the two players, and then whichever player solves the puzzle that's in the background wins all their prizes. But in this game, I mean, the computer guesses the background before you, I mean, you can't even read half the things back there, but the computer knows what it is, so it's really not fair. I guess I could put it in 2-player mode and play against myself, where it'd be less frustrating. Here we got Deja Vu. Kind of an interesting, like, mystery game. It's kind of weird, but it's another game I never got too far in. I always get lost and end up getting shot or mugged, but pretty fun game. You wake up in a restroom, in the restroom stall. This game actually won an award. It was first created on a computer years ago, and it won an award for its point-and-click features because it was something new. And I mean, this was back like in, I think, 1985, maybe even before that. It was before like Nintendo even came out. It came out on Atari, or on computer, and it was really famously known for its point-and-click features, which was something completely new and became really popular, winning an award. And it was also the inspiration for another point-and-click game we're going to see, Maniac Mansion, which I'll get into when we get there. But anyway, you wake up in a restroom stall, you have amnesia, and you pretty much just have to go around and try figuring out who you are and what's going on. But like I said, I can't get too far in this game, so I'll just see it up to a certain point. Here we go, Maniac Mansion. This is another one of my favorites, point-and-click game. This one, you're walking through a mansion. This was actually created by George Lucas, Lucasfilms, and it was published by Jaleco, but I guess they had some troubles with this game because originally it was created on computer, and I guess they wanted to put it on Nintendo, but there was a few things in the computer version that was considered inappropriate for Nintendo. Because I mean, back in the old days, like in the 80s and 90s, there really weren't too many kids that had computers. Most computers you saw back then were like in offices, so about the only people that would play games are like maybe people who are working late and they get some free time where they might play games, but I don't think too many kids really played games on computers back then. So most kids played games on like Nintendo and Sega. So I guess when George Lucas presented this game to Nintendo, they told him, well, he's going to have to make a few changes because their main audience for Nintendo games are kids. So I guess he had to change a few words. Like, there's one scene where the Dr. Fred says to the girl he kidnaps, you're going to be getting your pretty little brain sucked out. They thought that sounded too graphic, so they changed it to, you're going to get your pretty little brains removed. So it was just a few minor changes like that. Apparently there was a controversial naked statue in the game too, that they were having problems with. I guess they wanted to remove it, and he said, how about if we do this? And they kind of were going back and forth. Finally decided, well, we'll just remove it. But anyway, it's a pretty fun game. It's another game I could beat. There's more than one way to beat this game. I know of 2 ways, and I hear on the computer version there are multiple ways of beating the game depending on what characters you use. So I'm going to go ahead and you always have to use Dave, which is the main character we see right here. The other 2 characters you get to pick between, I used to pick Razor and Bernard, but I'll pick them for the first playthrough, and then I'll pick some other ones for the second playthrough, because I'm actually going to do both playthroughs of this game. The first one's probably going to take about maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. The second one's only going to take like an hour, because once we see the first full playthrough, there's a lot I can skip in the second one. So I'm going to show both ways to beat it. There's also multiple ways your characters can die in this game. So I'll probably be doing a special video on that too, showing how you can do that. Next we have Ninja Gaiden 2. It's the sequel to the Ninja Gaiden. Not much difference. Pretty much the same. There are a few little advancements to the game, but I don't know, I'm still not very good at this game either. Next we're going to see Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. Now, when they came out with this game, they pretty much went back to the basics. Kind of like the first game, you got your health meter and your enemy health and the item you can use. They pretty much, everything just went back to the first game, and I really didn't like it. I thought the second game was the best. I guess they had a few disagreements from other fans, so they went back to looking like the first game, but I can't get very far in this game at all. So, we'll see how it goes. North and South is another one of my favorite games. It's kind of hard to explain, but you got a map screen and you move your characters around. It's better to show than to explain, so I have to do more of a full explanation when I'm playing the game. But anyways, you can choose between whether you want to be north or south. I'm going to be the north, of course, since I'm from Iowa, and because I also agreed with Abraham Lincoln's choice to free the slaves, so I'm going to be the north fighting against the Confederate. And you move your characters around to beat them, and anytime you move a character around one of their characters, you go into battle like you see here. So the only thing I don't like about the battle scenes is the computer has the advantage, because they can control their cannons, their horsemen, and their gunmen all simultaneously, whereas player 1 has to press the button to switch between who he wants to use. So this game is actually more fun to play 2 players, but it's still pretty fun to play against the computer. I'm going to do a more detailed explanation when I'm actually playing the game, because this is another one of my favorites. Next we have caveman games, kind of like the prehistoric version of the Olympics. You got mate toss, as we see right here, where you got to swing your mate around and see how far you can throw her. See how much speed you can get in your angle. You got like catapulting over a dinosaur. You got starting a fire with rubbing 2 sticks together. All kinds of weird games like that. So I don't think this game was too popular. Really wasn't that fun, but it's one of those games that you'd want to rent it but not buy it. Nowadays though, games are pretty cheap, so pay the same price to buy games today that you used to pay to rent them, or close to it anyway. Next we got Dick Tracy. This game's kind of fun, but it's really hard, so I don't know, there's really not a whole lot to say about it. You just pretty much go on all this investigations and see how far you can get without getting killed. Back to the Future Part 2 and 3. Now, we didn't get to see the first Back to the Future, but both games were made by LJN, so that should explain why we didn't ever seen the first one. But The second game was a little more fun than the first one. The first game, you're just walking down the streets and you got like bowling balls flying at you, which had nothing to do with the movie. Of course, in this game, you're going to see a lot of stuff that had nothing to do with the movie either. It's kind of like when they created this game, they said, well, Back to the Future Part 2 and 3 were good movies, so let's make a game about it and it'll sell. But I don't think they really had too much of an idea of what to do with the game. So they just went and put all these bad guys in the game. They didn't even come up with their own bad guys. They created like these walking hamburgers, and you got like Spinies from Super Mario Brothers in the game. I think just about every enemy in here might be from a different game, because they also got snails, which looked like the same snails from Adventure Island or Wonder Boy. Those hamburgers, walking hamburgers, might be from another game too, I don't know, but it's crazy. You're running around as Marty getting attacked by hamburgers, Spinies, birds, bats, and these stringy green things that look like boogers on a string come out of pipes. But we'll go ahead and play this game, just run around and see all the weird stuff you can do in the game. Next, this is a game I do not currently own, but I'm hoping to get it, Tecmo Super Bowl. Now this was going to be the kickoff of the 1991 games. This game was huge when it came out because it had all the teams in it and it had all the players, so it was like a more advanced version of Tecmo Bowl. It was Tecmo Super Bowl on the regular Nintendo. So this is the only Tecmo football game I do not own. I own all 5 of the Tecmo games, 2 on the Nintendo, 3 on Super Nintendo. I own 4 of the 5 games, and this is the one I do not own, is Tecmo Super Bowl on the original Nintendo. But it's been years since I played this game, so I definitely want to get it. I tried to order it once, and they accidentally sent me the first Tecmo Bowl game, which I already had, so I didn't want that. Hopefully I can get this game so we can see that before I get here. And here we see Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom. This is another point-and-click game. It's really not very fun of a game. I don't know why I even downloaded it on the Wii. I guess because I rented it once and liked it for some reason, but now I get to a certain point and I can't figure out how to get past it, so I might actually have to watch someone else play on YouTube or try looking something up where I can get some tips on how to get past it. Here we see Bart Simpson, or The Simpsons, Bart vs. the Space Mutants. This is a game I used to own, and kind of a fun platformer game, but it's really weird. You got these aliens taking over, and you got to spray paint anything purple. Well, pretty much anything purple you got to get rid of. So you can either spray paint it red, or else you can cover it up. Or they got like multiple different ways of getting rid of purple stuff. You just have to keep your eyes open and kind of figure out how to get rid of certain things, but it's kind of a fun game. I'll play until I die. Lone Ranger is another game that's really fun, but it's hard. Hopefully I can get some passwords for this game and get pretty far in it where I can keep on going, because I can usually get past the first board. It's kind of like the first mission I can pass and get to the second one, and I kind of get stuck right there, so hopefully I can get some passwords and make it more fun. Next. Okay, I only got like a minute and 10 seconds left to finish this video up, so here's American Gladiators. On the Nintendo, this game isn't very fun. There is a Super Nintendo version I have too, but I got both versions, so we're going to go ahead and see this one. And we're going to see Bill and Ted's Excellent Video Game Adventure, another game made by LGN. Good movie turned into a bad game. Should be called Bill and Ted's Bogus Video Game Adventure, because it's really not fun. You run around lost, but I don't know, we'll go ahead and see the fun it's possible to have in there anyway. There's the NES Open Tournament Golf, where you play as Mario playing golf. Pretty fun game. So we'll go ahead and do a round of this. MC Kids, this is a game that I want to get. I do not currently own, but it's a pretty fun game. It's a platformer game, kind of like Super Mario Brothers 3, it looks like. It also kind of has a feel of Super Mario Brothers 2. And then last but not least, we're going to see Kirby's Adventure, which I downloaded on the Wii. Kind of a fun game, so I'm really out of time right there, so I'm going to have to end my video. At least we got to see all the games, so I'll see you in the first game, which I'm not sure when I'll be coming out with it though.